Something is happening. Can you feel it? A shift in the world, subtle yet undeniable. Wars, crises, financial turmoil, cultural upheavals. But this isn't just history repeating itself. It's part of a pattern, a prophecy written long before our time, now playing out before our very eyes. Most people are too distracted to notice. They're waiting for something spectacular, a sign so obvious that it demands attention. But real prophecy doesn't work that way. It unfolds in plain sight, hidden in the ordinary, until it's too late. The warnings have already been given. The scriptures foretold these very moments. But here's the real question. Are you paying attention? Or are you sleepwalking through the most crucial time in human history? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal might change everything you thought you knew about the world we live in. The sign. No one is seeing. Most people are waiting for something big, some world-shaking event that will leave no doubt in their minds. But that's not how prophecy works. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It unfolds in the details, in the seemingly insignificant shifts that slowly piece together a much bigger picture. And right now, we're standing in the middle of it, watching it unfold. Yet very few are paying attention. They're looking at the headlines but missing the message. They're focused on distractions while the real story plays out right in front of them. Think about the Pharisees in Jesus' time. They studied prophecy, memorized scripture, and waited for the Messiah. But when he stood before them, they rejected him. Why? Because he didn't fit the picture they had in their minds. They expected a warrior king, not a humble servant. And today the same mistake is happening. People are waiting for a grand spectacle, a moment so undeniable that they can't ignore it. But prophecy moves differently. It moves through history like a whisper in the wind, guiding those who are truly listening. Look at the world around you. Inflation is rising, economies are shifting, moral values are crumbling, and global leaders are positioning themselves in ways that eerily align with biblical prophecy. But the average person isn't connecting the dots. They see isolated events, a market crash here, a political conflict there, but they don't recognize the pattern. Yet the Bible is clear. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. Matthew 24:42. If we're not watching, we'll be caught off guard. Imagine standing in front of Noah's Ark, watching the animals go in, hearing the warnings, yet continuing with your day as if nothing were happening. That's exactly what's playing out right now. People are going about their lives chasing money, success, and security without realizing that the foundations of the world as we know it are shifting beneath their feet. The financial system is changing. The way we make money, build wealth, and create passive income is evolving at a pace we've never seen before. Yet, while some are preparing, others are sleepwalking through it all. And here's the real danger. When you don't see the signs, you don't prepare. When you don't prepare, you're left vulnerable. Just like the 5 foolish virgins in the parable of Matthew 25 who failed to bring extra oil for their lamps. When the bridegroom came, they were left outside. And isn't that what's happening today? People are burning their oil on meaningless things, while those who are wise, those who are truly paying attention, are storing up spiritual, financial, and mental reserves for what's coming. So let me ask you, are you seeing the signs? Or are you still waiting for something bigger, something more obvious? Because if you're waiting for the perfect moment to prepare, it might already be passing you by. Drop a comment below. Do you think people today are paying attention, or are they completely missing what's happening? I want to hear your thoughts. The prophets have already warned us. This isn't new, none of it. Every crisis, every shift in power, every disruption in society, it was all written long before we ever got here. The prophets saw it, they described it. But just like in their time, people brushed it off. They called it superstition, paranoia, or irrelevant to modern life. But now, here we are, standing in the very days they spoke of, and the question remains, are we listening? Isaiah spoke of nations crumbling under their own corruption. Daniel foresaw the rise and fall of global powers. John, in the book of Revelation, painted a vision so vivid that it seemed impossible until now. Look at what's happening. A world rushing toward digital currency, centralized control, and a society that values pleasure over principle. The very conditions described thousands of years ago are shaping the headlines today. It's not coincidence, it's confirmation. Think about Daniel for a moment. He was thrown into a den of lions, not because he committed a crime, but because he refused to bow to a system that contradicted his faith. Now, look at today's world. People are being silenced for speaking truth. Biblical values are being mocked. Society is being reshaped to fit an agenda that has been carefully designed to pull people away from God. And the most dangerous part? Most don't even see it happening. They think it's just the way the world evolves. But evolution without direction leads to destruction. We are witnessing a global restructuring, not just in politics, but in economics, morality, and even spirituality. The financial landscape is shifting faster than ever. Passive income streams, online businesses, and investment strategies are replacing traditional ways of making money. And yet, while some are adapting, others are still waiting for things to go back to normal. But normal isn't coming back. We are moving towards something entirely new, something that aligns precisely with the prophetic timeline written in Scripture. And if you think prophecy is just about war and disasters, think again. It's about people. It's about decisions. It's about the slow erosion of truth, the rewriting of history, and the normalization of things that were once unthinkable. The book of 2 Timothy 3:1-4 describes it perfectly. In the last days, perilous times will come. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy. Sound familiar? That's not some future warning. That's today's reality. So I'll ask you again, are we listening? Are we truly paying attention to the warnings given to us? Or are we, like so many before us, dismissing the prophets and walking blindly into a future that was already revealed? Let me know in the comments. Do you believe biblical prophecy is unfolding right now, or do you think people are exaggerating? I want to hear your thoughts. The pattern of prophetic fulfillment. Prophecy isn't random. It's not a collection of disconnected warnings. It's a pattern, a cycle that repeats itself throughout history, and once you recognize the pattern, you'll never look at the world the same way again. Every time people ignore the truth, dismiss the warnings, and live as if nothing will change, the cycle plays out the same way. Crisis, collapse, awakening, restoration. This isn't speculation. It's how history unfolds, and we're right in the middle of it. Think about the ancient Israelites. Every time they turned away from God, chaos followed. They embraced false idols, indulged in corruption, and prioritized wealth over wisdom. And what happened? Judgment came. Every single time. Babylon rose. Empires fell, the people cried out, and God restored them. Then, the cycle started all over again. The difference is, this time, we're not just looking at one nation's history. We're looking at a global pattern, converging at an unprecedented scale. We've seen it before. The fall of Rome, the collapse of great civilizations. Every time, the same signs appeared beforehand. Economic instability, moral decay, and a society more focused on pleasure than purpose. Sound familiar? Right now, we're witnessing economic shifts unlike anything in history. Traditional ways of earning are fading, and new paths like online businesses, investments, and passive income are rising. But most people aren't adapting. They're stuck, waiting for things to settle. But prophecy doesn't pause for comfort. It moves forward with or without you. The Bible is filled with patterns. 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. Empires rising and falling in perfect succession, exactly as Daniel predicted. Even Jesus followed a divine timeline, arriving precisely when prophecy declared he would. The same cycle is playing out now, but the final chapters are approaching. We're moving into the stage where the division between those who see and those who don't becomes painfully clear. And once that happens, there's no turning back. That's why awareness is everything. If you don't recognize the pattern, you'll be caught off guard, just like those in Noah's time, eating and drinking, living as if nothing would change. And when the flood came, it was too late. This is why Jesus said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." Matthew 24:37. The question is, are we in those days now? Or are we still telling ourselves we have more time? So let me ask you, do you see the pattern? Can you recognize the same cycle repeating? Or do you believe this time is different? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. The prophecy unfolding right now. There's always been talk of prophecy, but never like this. This is different. This isn't speculation, it's unfolding right here, right now. You can see it in the shifts happening across the world. You can feel it in the way people are acting, thinking, and living. And if you know where to look, you can trace the exact lines that connect today's events to Scripture. What once seemed distant is now undeniable. The warnings aren't just words in an ancient book, they're becoming reality. Look at the rise of digital control, the push toward a cashless society, the restructuring of financial systems. For years, people dismissed the idea that the world could be forced into a single economic framework, but now it's happening faster than anyone expected. Countries are developing digital currencies that will give central authorities complete control over who buys, who sells, and who is locked out of the system. And if that doesn't sound familiar, read Revelation 13:17, so that no one could buy or sell unless they had the mark. But it's not just economics, it's everything. Society is being reshaped at an alarming rate. Values that stood for thousands of years are now seen as outdated, even dangerous. The things once considered sacred are being torn down, rewritten, and replaced. And the scary part? The majority are embracing it, just like in the days of Babylon, when people celebrated their own destruction, convinced they were progressing. But progress without wisdom leads to disaster. Even the way we pursue wealth is shifting. The traditional career path is crumbling. More people are turning to passive income, online businesses, and digital investments. But here's the challenge. Those who don't adapt will be left behind. This isn't just about money, it's about survival in a world that's rapidly changing. The question is, are you positioning yourself wisely, or are you hoping things will stay the same? Because they won't. This is why prophecy matters. It's not just about knowing what's coming, it's about preparing for it. We were told that deception would be widespread, that truth would be twisted, and that the world would be lulled into a false sense of security before everything shifts. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. So what's happening right now? Leaders are promising stability, even as the foundations crack beneath us. The illusion of control is keeping people blind. So here's what I want to know. Do you see it? Are you connecting the dots? Or are you still waiting for something bigger? Let me know in the comments. Do you believe we are watching prophecy unfold? Or do you think the world will go back to normal? I want to hear your thoughts. The connection between current events and prophecy. Nothing is random. Everything happening right now is part of a larger plan, a structure laid out long before we arrived. If you take a step back and observe the world through the lens of prophecy, you'll see it. The wars, the economic instability, the cultural shifts, they're not isolated events. They're puzzle pieces fitting into a prophetic picture that's becoming clearer by the day. The question is, are you looking at the full image, or are you only seeing fragments? Take global conflict, for example. The Bible has been clear about wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Matthew 24:7. And yet, even when these conflicts escalate, people convince themselves it's just history repeating itself. But prophecy isn't about repetition, it's about culmination. Every war, every crisis, every shift is leading to something bigger. What seemed like separate events are actually steps in a divine timeline. Look at technology. AI, biometric surveillance, digital ID systems, things that seemed like science fiction a decade ago are now everyday reality. And if you've studied scripture, you know this level of control was foretold. The rise of a system where people are tracked, monitored, and controlled isn't just a possibility. It's happening now. The tools for absolute control exist, and soon they will no longer be optional. The systems being built today will define how we live tomorrow. But the biggest connection between prophecy and our world today? The deception. Never in history have people been so easily manipulated. The information age was supposed to bring knowledge, yet it has created confusion. Truth is now subjective, morality is fluid, and society is conditioning people to accept anything as long as it feels right. But Scripture warned us, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Matthew 24:24. If you're not grounded in truth, you'll be swept away by the lies. And here's where it gets real. Prophecy isn't just about recognizing what's happening. It's about deciding where you stand. You can either wake up and prepare, or you can ignore the signs and hope things stay comfortable. But comfort is temporary. The world is changing. The economy is shifting. How we make money, build wealth, and secure our future is evolving rapidly. Those who don't adapt, those who don't see what's coming, will find themselves struggling when the next wave hits. So, let me ask you, are you connecting the dots? Are you seeing how the world today matches the prophecies of Scripture? Or are you still waiting for something more obvious? Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. The global deception and the preparation for the climax. Most people don't realize this, but deception doesn't happen overnight. It's not a sudden event, it's a process, a slow, calculated conditioning that shifts people's perception of reality without them even noticing. That's what's happening right now. People aren't rejecting the truth because they've reasoned against it. They're rejecting it because they've been trained to, and if you don't see it yet, that's exactly the point. The greatest deception is the one that convinces you it doesn't exist. Look around. Society has been reprogrammed to embrace confusion as truth. People no longer ask, is this right? They ask, does this feel right to me? The absolute has been replaced by the personal. And yet, the Bible warned about this very mindset. For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. 2 Timothy 4:3. That time isn't coming. It's here. This deception isn't just spiritual, it's economic, political, and technological. Money is shifting. The entire structure of wealth is being rewritten. Traditional jobs are vanishing. AI is replacing workers. The middle class is shrinking. And yet people still live as if the financial system is stable. They're trusting the same structures that are quietly being dismantled. The Bible speaks of an economic reset, one where control over money means control over people. And we are watching that system being built in real time. But here's what makes deception so powerful. It blinds people to urgency. The world tells you that there's plenty of time, that things will work themselves out, that you can always adjust later. But that's the greatest lie of all. Jesus didn't say, make plans to prepare someday. He said, be ready. Luke 12:40. The deception is designed to keep you passive until it's too late. So what do? You wake up. You shift your mindset. You stop hoping for stability in a world that was never designed to be stable. Instead, you prepare spiritually, mentally, financially. You start taking control of your income, You invest in knowledge, skills, and opportunities that allow you to create security outside of a collapsing system. Because those who see what's coming don't wait for the storm to hit. They build before it arrives. And that's why I need to ask you, do you see it? Do you see the deception? Do you recognize how people are being conditioned to accept what's coming without question? Or are you still thinking there's more time? Let's talk about it in the comments. I want to know where you stand. The role of global powers in prophecy. Power isn't what it used to be. It's no longer just about armies, borders, or brute force. Today, power is control. Control over money, control over information, control over perception. And right now, the most powerful forces on this planet aren't just leading nations. They're shaping reality. They're steering the world toward a future that aligns exactly with what prophecy foretold. The question is, do you see it? Throughout history, global empires have risen and fallen, each playing a role in the prophetic timeline. Babylon, Persia, Rome. They all followed a cycle of expansion, corruption, and collapse. But today, we're not dealing with just one empire. We're watching a global convergence, a network of economic and political forces working together, not against each other. The Bible spoke of this moment where nations would unite under a system that controls commerce, law, and even faith. And now, that system is unfolding right before us. Think about how information is controlled. Not long ago, people had access to a wide range of perspectives. Now, a handful of corporations control nearly everything you see, hear, and believe. Social media algorithms decide what's relevant. News outlets filter what's important. Entire platforms can disappear voices that challenge the narrative. And if you don't think that's dangerous, ask yourself, who benefits from a world where only one version of the truth exists? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ephesians 6:12. But it's not just information, it's finance. The shift toward digital currency isn't just about convenience, it's about control. A system where every transaction is tracked, monitored, and, if necessary, restricted. Imagine a world where access to your money depends on compliance, where buying, selling, and even investing are privileges granted, not rights. If you think that's extreme, look at the push for centralized digital IDs, programmable money, and government-controlled digital wallets. It's already happening, and this is where most people get it wrong. They think these changes are about progress, about technology making life easier. But progress without freedom is a trap. Just like Rome, just like Babylon, the world is being structured into a system where control is disguised as convenience. And when the final stage of that system is in place, those who aren't prepared will have no choice but to comply. The Bible warned of a time when the world would move toward a one-world system, and we are watching the foundation of that system being laid right now. So here's my question for you. Do you see the pattern? Do you see how global powers aren't just shaping economies and politics, but are positioning themselves to control the very fabric of society? Or are you still thinking this is just another phase of history? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's break this down together. Technology and the advancement of prophecy. Technology has never moved this fast. What once took centuries now happens in a matter of years. Innovation is accelerating, but so is control. And if you step back and look at the bigger picture, you'll see this isn't just about convenience or progress. It's about alignment. The systems being built today are shaping the very world that prophecy described thousands of years ago. The question is, do you recognize it? Look at artificial intelligence. AI isn't just changing industries, it's changing power. Algorithms are deciding what people believe. Machines are learning human behavior at a scale never seen before. And soon, AI will be making decisions that were once reserved for human minds. Revelation speaks of a time when the world would be ruled not by kings alone, but by a system that dictates who can buy, who can sell, and who is free. And today we have the technology to make that system a reality. But it's not just AI, it's the shift toward digital identification and control. Governments around the world are introducing digital IDs, social credit systems, and programmable currency. These tools, once optional, are becoming essential for daily life. What happens when access to banking, healthcare, or even travel depends on compliance with a centralized system? The Bible warned about this moment. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark, so that no one may buy or sell unless he has the mark. Revelation 13:16-17. We are watching the infrastructure for this prophecy being built right now. And here's the real danger. People are embracing it. They're being conditioned to trade privacy for convenience, to sacrifice freedom for efficiency. The more reliant we become on technology, the easier it is for control to be implemented without resistance. Look at how quickly cash is disappearing. Look at how digital transactions are being prioritized. A system is forming where everything is monitored, everything is connected, and nothing is truly yours unless it's permitted by the system itself. Yet most people don't see this as prophecy unfolding. They see it as progress. They believe the world is simply evolving. But evolution without wisdom leads to destruction. Just like in the Tower of Babel, humanity is racing toward technological advancement without considering the consequences. And history shows us what happens when power is centralized into the wrong hands. The question is, will you recognize the signs before it's too late? So, let me ask you, do you see it? Do you see how technology is shaping the very world the Bible predicted? Or do you think this is just another phase of advancement? Drop a comment below. Let's have this conversation. The danger of indifference. The greatest threat to truth isn't opposition, it's indifference. It's the mindset that says, this has nothing to do with me, while the world shifts beneath your feet. It's the belief that life will go on as it always has, even when every sign points to the opposite. And right now, this very mindset is leading millions into complacency, just as prophecy warned it would. Jesus spoke of a time when people would be living as if nothing was happening, just like in the days of Noah. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing until the flood came and took them all away. Matthew 24:38-39. They had all the warnings. They saw the ark being built, but they ignored it until the rain started falling. That's exactly where we are today. The financial system is changing. The global order is shifting. The way people make money, build wealth, and secure their future is being rewritten. But how many are paying attention? Instead of preparing, most people are distracted by entertainment, by temporary pleasures, by the illusion of stability. But stability is a myth. History proves it. Every great empire that thought it was invincible eventually fell. And when it happened, the ones who suffered most were those who thought they had more time. That's why mindset matters. You can't afford to live passively, expecting life to always be predictable. If you're not adapting, if you're not actively preparing, you're already behind. The people who recognize what's coming are shifting their approach. They're diversifying income. They're building streams of wealth that can't be controlled by centralized systems. They're taking action while everyone else is asleep. And that's not fear, it's wisdom. Because here's the truth, when prophecy unfolds, there's no rewind button. There's no, I'll get ready later. The time to act is before the storm hits, not after, and yet millions are living as if tomorrow will be just like today. But prophecy doesn't move on your schedule, it moves on God's. And when the next major shift happens, the ones who ignored the warnings will be the ones caught off guard. So, let me ask you, are you awake, or are you waiting for the storm to be right on top of you before you act? Let's talk in the comments. I want to know, Do you believe people are too indifferent to what's happening, or do you think they're waking up? The separation between the prepared and the unaware. Every prophecy in history has done one thing. It has divided people. It has separated those who see from those who don't, those who are prepared from those who ignore the signs. And right now, we are witnessing that same division unfolding in real time. The world is splitting into two groups: those who understand what's happening and are taking action, and those who are hoping things will stay the same. But hope is not a strategy. Think about the parable of the 10 virgins, Matthew 25, 1-13. All of them were waiting for the bridegroom. All of them thought they were prepared, but only 5 brought extra oil. Only 5 were ready for the unexpected. And when the moment came, the others were locked out, not because they didn't believe in the event, but because they assumed they had more time. That's exactly what's happening today. Many believe the world is changing, but few are preparing for what's next. Look at how the wealthy operate. They aren't sitting around waiting for the economy to collapse. They're positioning themselves. They're diversifying assets, building passive income, and creating multiple streams of wealth. And this isn't just about money. It's about adaptability. It's about recognizing the shift before it happens, so you're not playing catch-up when the system locks into place. Those who move early control the game. Those who wait are controlled by it. And this is exactly why prophecy is so powerful, because it gives us an advantage. It allows us to see patterns before they fully form. But knowledge alone is not enough. Knowing that a storm is coming doesn't protect you. Building before the storm does. That's why Jesus constantly warned his followers to be watchful, to be awake, to be ready. Because when the moment comes, there won't be time to get prepared. You'll either already be positioned or you won't. And here's the reality: the division is already happening. You see it in the choices people make. Some are breaking free from the system, developing independence, and strengthening their faith. Others are becoming more dependent, more passive, more willing to let the world decide their fate. And soon, the separation will become permanent. There will be no middle ground, no room for hesitation. You will either be ready or you will be left behind. So, I'll ask you again, which side of the line are you on? Are you preparing for what's coming, or are you assuming you have more time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know, do you see this division happening around you, or do you think people are still asleep? Let's discuss. The final call before the prophecy is completely fulfilled. Warnings don't last forever. There comes a point where the window of opportunity closes, where the chance to prepare is gone, and all that remains is the reality of what was prophesied. And that's where we are right now, on the very edge of that moment. The world is changing at a speed we've never seen before, but the greatest shift isn't political or economic. It's spiritual. A final call is being made, and soon that call will end. Look at history. Every major event, every empire that collapsed, every society that fell into chaos was preceded by a warning. Noah warned for years before the flood came. Lot was warned before Sodom was destroyed. Jerusalem was warned before it fell to Rome. And today, the same warnings are being given, but who is listening? The Bible is not just a book of stories, it's a roadmap. And right now, that roadmap is showing us exactly where we are. But here's the problem. People think they have time. They assume they'll recognize the moment when it arrives. They tell themselves, I'll get serious when things really start happening. But prophecy doesn't work that way. The moment you're waiting for is already here. The pieces are already in place. The shift is already happening. Those who aren't prepared right now will be the ones caught off guard when everything accelerates. Think about this. When the flood came, the door of the ark was shut. There was no negotiation, no last-minute change of mind. The time for deciding was before the rain started falling, and the same is true today. Whether it's your spiritual preparation, your financial independence, or your ability to navigate a world that's rapidly changing, if you wait until the crisis is obvious, you're already too late. That's why this isn't just a call to awareness. It's a call to action. Some will hear this and wake up. Others will ignore it, dismissing it as just another warning. But one thing is certain, nobody will be able to say they weren't told. We are being given a chance to align, to prepare, to step into wisdom before the door closes. And once it does, there will be no second chances. The question is, will you move now, or will you be one of those left outside, wondering why you didn't act sooner? So let me ask you, do you feel this urgency? Do you sense that the final call is being made? Or do you think people still have time to waste? Let's talk in the comments. I want to know, are you awake or are you still waiting? The choices that must be made now. Indecision is still a decision. Choosing not to act is, in itself, an action. It's a choice to remain where you are while the world moves forward without you. And right now, in this very moment, the choices you make will define where you stand when prophecy fully unfolds. Will you be prepared, positioned and protected? Or will you be caught off guard, scrambling to adjust when the time for preparation has already passed? This is not about fear, it's about clarity. Look at any successful person, in any field. What sets them apart? Decisiveness. They see an opportunity and they act. They recognize change and they pivot. That's why the wealthy are always ahead of economic collapses. They don't wait for the system to fail before they move. They make intentional choices to secure their future. And this applies to everything: your finances, your spiritual life, your relationships, your mindset. Those who act early lead, those who wait follow. Look at what Jesus said about decision-making. No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. Luke 9:62. In other words, once you recognize the truth, you can't afford to hesitate. You either move forward or you get left behind. And that's what's happening now. People who are paying attention are shifting. They're developing financial independence, strengthening their faith, preparing for a world that won't look the same a few years from now. Meanwhile, others are frozen in place, waiting for the perfect moment to act, a moment that will never come. And that's the trap. Waiting for the right time to get serious, waiting for things to be more obvious, waiting until it's convenient to change. But the right time never announces itself. By the time most people realize the moment is here, the ones who were prepared have already moved on to the next stage. Just like the 5 wise virgins who brought extra oil, Matthew 25, they didn't wait for the last second to secure what they needed. They made the decision before it was necessary, and because of that, they were ready when the door opened. So here's the real question. What choice are you making today? Not next week, not next year. Right now, will you stay where you are, hoping things won't change too quickly? Or will you take responsibility, step into wisdom, and position yourself before the system locks into place? Because one thing is certain, those who prepare now will not live in regret later. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you see how important these choices are? Are you ready to make a move, or are you still hesitating? Let's talk. The time for waiting is over. The prophetic climax is approaching. Everything has been leading to this. Every shift in society, every economic change, every political upheaval, it's all pointing toward one thing: the climax of prophecy. The moment where everything converges and the world steps into a reality that has been foretold for centuries. The final pieces are falling into place. But here's the key. By the time most people recognize it, it will already be too late to adjust. Look at how prophecy has unfolded throughout history. Every major biblical event had a build-up, a moment of warning, and then sudden fulfillment. The flood came suddenly. The destruction of Sodom happened in an instant. Jerusalem fell when people least expected it. And yet in every case there were warnings. There were signs, there were opportunities to prepare. Some listened, some didn't, but the outcome was always the same. Those who acted in time were saved. Those who didn't were left behind. And today, we are standing at the very same type of moment. The world is on the brink of a transformation, unlike anything we've ever seen. The financial system is shifting towards centralized control. The global power structure is being rearranged. The very way people think, believe, and live is being altered. And if you look at prophecy, you'll see that this is not random. We are moving toward the fulfillment of things that were written thousands of years ago, things that seemed impossible, but are now unfolding in real time. The Bible warns about a moment when the world will be lulled into a false sense of security. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. And what are we seeing now? Leaders telling people that everything is under control, that the system is secure, that the future is bright. Meanwhile, the foundations of the world as we know it are cracking beneath our feet. And still, most people remain unaware. But this is not a message of fear, it's a message of power. Because while the world may be shifting, those who are aligned, spiritually, financially, mentally, will not be shaken. The wise are already moving. They are adjusting. They are preparing. Because they know that when the climax of prophecy arrives, the time for decision-making will be over. There will be no second chances, no rewinds, no "I wish I had more time." There will only be those who saw it coming and those who were caught off guard. So, let me ask you, do you see it? Do you sense that we are on the verge of something massive? Or do you think people are still too blind to recognize it? Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. Because the time for waiting is gone. The time for action is now. Are you ready for what's coming? This is it. This is the moment where you look at everything we've covered and ask yourself the most important question of all. Am I ready? Because at the end of the day, awareness means nothing without action. The signs are here. The warnings have been given. The patterns are clear. But the real question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Most people will ignore it. That's how it's always been. Noah's generation ignored him until the flood came. Lot's neighbors laughed at his warnings until the fire fell. People always assume they have more time, and then, suddenly, the moment arrives and reality hits. But by then, it's too late to prepare. The doors of the ark were shut. The opportunity had passed, and those who failed to act were left outside. Right now, the same scenario is playing out. Spiritually, the world is moving into uncharted territory. Economically, the system is shifting beneath our feet. The way people make money, build wealth, and create security is being restructured. Those who see it happening are positioning themselves. They're moving their focus from passive living to intentional action. They're building financial independence, deepening their spiritual foundation, and preparing for a future that will look very different from the world we once knew. But the majority, they're still asleep. They're hoping things will return to normal. They're waiting for some obvious, undeniable moment before they take action. But here's the truth. If you wait until it's obvious, you're already too late. The shift is happening right now, and every decision you make or don't make is determining which side of history you'll be on when everything accelerates. This is why Jesus warned so strongly. Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning. Luke 12:35. He didn't say to wait until the last second. He didn't say to get ready when it feels urgent. He said to live ready. And those who understand this are the ones who won't be shaken when the world changes overnight. Because they didn't wait, they moved. So here's the final question. Are you ready? Are you taking this seriously, or are you still assuming you have more time? Drop a comment below. I want to know, do you see what's coming? Or are you still waiting for something bigger? Because let me tell you, this is it. The time is now. This isn't just another video. This isn't just another warning. This is a moment of decision. A line has been drawn, and whether you realize it or not, you're already choosing which side you stand on. Some will walk away from this unchanged, convincing themselves that life will continue as it always has. Others will feel the urgency, the pull to wake up, to take action, to prepare before the window closes. The difference between those two groups? One will be ready, the other won't. Prophecy is not about fear, it's about clarity. It's about seeing the world for what it truly is, not what you wish it to be. Right now, everything is moving fast. Technology, economics, global control. But the biggest shift? It's in the spiritual realm. And those who are aware of it, those who are truly aligned, won't be caught off guard when the final moment arrives. Because let's be honest, it's already happening. The world isn't going back. The system isn't reversing. The prophecies aren't waiting for your convenience. They are unfolding right now. So let's bring this back to you. You've made it this far because something inside you knows this is real. Something inside you knows that this message is for you. So what will you do with it? Will you sit on this knowledge, letting time pass, hoping for more obvious signs? Or will you be like the 5 wise virgins, prepared before the moment comes? The choice is yours. But remember, there will come a time when choices will no longer be an option. Now I want to hear from you. Are you ready for what's coming? Do you see the shifts happening, or do you think people are still blind to reality? Drop a comment below. Let's get this conversation going. If this message resonated with you, make sure you like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the more people who wake up, the stronger we become. And before you go, if you want to go deeper, if you want to truly understand what happens next, watch the next video I have lined up for you. It will open your eyes even further. Click it now, because time is running out.